The streets of Detroit were far removed from the sleek conference rooms where Nathan once worked. He had once been a respected engineer shaping the future of automotive technology. For decades, as a top-tier automotive engineer, he had contributed to the development of electric vehicles, working tirelessly on innovative battery systems and motor efficiency. To him, machines were more than just metal, and circuits they were the pathway to a cleaner, more sustainable future. But that path had come to an abrupt dead end. First, his company downsized to cut costs. The board of directors, unafraid to discard even the most skilled talents, saw experienced engineers like Nathan as nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet. The firm he had dedicated years to let him go without so much as a thank you. Losing his job was just the first domino to fall. Without a steady income, his savings dwindled rapidly. The financial strain and his deepening depression drove his wife away. In the end, divorce became inevitable. Until then, Nathan had meticulously planned every step of his life. But life had no regard for his plans. When he lost his home, all he had left was a few loose coins in his pocket and a fading shred of hope. Now, as he walked the cold sidewalks of Detroit, he watched people driving the very vehicles that ran on the technology he had helped create. His designs were gliding through the city streets. Yet for him, those cars were no longer symbols of achievement. They had become cruel reminders of irony. He had built them, but now he couldn't even dream of affording one. All he had left was his knowledge and engineering genius. But knowledge didn't put food on the table in a world where survival came first. At night, he found shelter in whatever safe corner he could, and by day, he observed the world around him with the sharp instincts he had honed over years of problem-solving. Machines broke down. People struggled to fix things, but no one knew what he knew. No one asked him. Sometimes, memories of his past life resurfaced, and he realized how short-lived those good days had been. Coffee breaks in his luxury office, passionate debates over groundbreaking projects in conference room snow. All of it felt like remnants of another life. People no longer looked at him the same way. The man they once respected as an expert was now just another forgotten figure on the sidewalk. At night, as the city hummed around him, the only sound echoing in his mind was the weight of his despair. The bright lights of skyscrapers reminded him of his past, while the biting wind carried the chilling uncertainty of his future. Had everything he once worked for meant anything, or was he just another name lost to time? But a voice inside him refused to stay silent. One day, maybe one day, as long as he was still breathing, there was a chance. Life had a way of offering opportunities in the most unexpected moments. And that day was closer than he could have ever imagined. On a cold evening, Nathan found himself in one of Detroit's outskirts, near a Tesla charging station. The winter chill seeped into his bones as he shoved his hands into his coat pockets. His stomach twisted with hunger, and his knees trembled from exhaustion. But tonight would be different. The just didn't know it yet. As he peered through the shadows at the station, he noticed a sleek red Tesla Roadster sitting motionless. The car seemed Frozeno lights, no movement. The man standing beside it was tapping impatiently on his phone, frustration clearly written on his face. His movements were sharp and agitated, as if the entire world were conspiring against him. Nathan narrowed his eyes. He knew that man, Elon Musk. The CEO was muttering under his breath, trying to troubleshoot the technical issue. Nathan hesitated for a moment. The man in front of him was one of the biggest names in technology, a visionary who had revolutionized his industry and spearheaded world-changing projects. And yet, here he was helpless in the face of a machine. Nathan's engineering instincts kicked in. In just a few seconds of observing from a distance, he diagnosed the problem. Did he hesitate? Yes. But then the old engineer inside him stirred, pushing him forward. He took a deep breath, adjusted his collar with trembling hands, and stepped out of the shadows. "It's not a software issue," he said. Despite his worn-out appearance, his voice was surprisingly steady. "The problem is with the power inverter. The voltage regulator isn't syncing with the battery's charge state." Musk's head snapped up. His tired, irritated eyes scanned Nathan. The man standing before him had an unkempt beard, tattered clothes, and the unmistakable look of someone who had spent too many nights on the street. At first glance, he seemed like someone to be ignored. But his eyes were sharp, knowledgeable, and certain. "And who the hell are you?" Musk asked, narrowing his gaze. A chill ran down Nathan's spine, but he held his ground. "An engineer," he replied. Or at least, I used to be. The doubt on Musk's face didn't fade. But time was running out, and the cold wasn't exactly forgiving. Finally, he gave a curt nod. Go on. Nathan sprang into action. He knelt beside the roadster, examining its undercarriage. Despite the freezing air and his drained body, his hands still knew what to do. A flicker of something old and familiar reignited inside him. Years of experience guided him as he quickly pinpointed the issue and made the necessary adjustments with a small screwdriver. In less than 5 minutes, the car's systems hummed back to life. A few seconds later, the roadster was operational again. Musk squinted at the screen, then turned to Nathan. You really know your stuff, Nathan shrugged. I dedicated my life to this. Musk reached for his wallet, but Nathan raised a hand to stop him. I don't want money, he said. I just want to be useful again. In that moment, everything changed. Despite the biting cold of Detroit, a flicker of hope lit up Nathan's world. Musk studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. We'll talk, he said. A brief silence fell between them. The founder of Tesla studied the man before him once more. It was clear he had once been a brilliant engineer, but life had a way of losing even the most talented. Musk's mind was working fast, running calculations of a different kind. Could this man be of use to his company? Was there a way? Finally, he gave a small nod. I need talented people, he said. But first, you need a place to stay. Wait here. Nathan watched as Musk pulled out his phone and made a call. He couldn't hear the conversation clearly, but a few minutes later, a black SUV pulled up beside them. A man stepped out tone of Musk's security personnel. Follow me, Musk said as he got into his car. Nathan was stunned. But this was an opportunity, maybe the biggest of his life. Or at least, he hoped it would be. As he settled into the SUV, the warmth of the seat seeped into his body. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this kind of comfort. The silence inside the car clashed with the noise inside his head. Up ahead, Musk was typing something on his phone in his own car. Nathan stared out the window. The night cast its usual loneliness over Detroit streets. The months, maybe even years, she had spent here flashed before his eyes. How far had life pulled him away from where he once was? But now he was going somewhere. He didn't know where, but he was moving. As the car picked up speed, Nathan felt both anxiety and excitement bubbling inside him. His life was about to change again. But Nathan had no idea what tomorrow would bring. At that moment, he didn't realize something was being recorded behind him. And by morning, the whole world would know his name. The next morning, Nathan woke up to a strange sound, his own name on the news. A witness had recorded the entire incident, and overnight, the internet had exploded. Headlines were dissecting the deeper meaning of the event. Forgotten genius fixes Tesla. Homeless engineer stuns Elon Musk. A second chance at greatness. Suddenly, Nathan had become the center of public attention. Social media was buzzing with discussions about his story, emphasizing that engineering wasn't just about a degree, it was about real talent. People started digging into his past, and former colleagues, along with the engineering community, remembered him. But with this sudden fame came an overwhelming pressure. No one had looked at him like this in years. No one had noticed him. He had lived as a nameless shadow, buried under the weight of his past. And now, millions of people were talking about his life. When Tesla's public relations team reached out to him, Nathan didn't know what to expect. They offered him an interview, suggested he make statements on social media. But Nathan had spent years in isolation, avoiding attention. Cameras and interviews terrified him. What would he even say? Explain who he was, talk about his losses, his past mistakes? He didn't want to do any of that. But then, something he never expected happened. Elon Musk reached out to him directly and made a job offer. But this wasn't just any job. Musk wanted Nathan to join Tesla's R&D team, working on next-generation battery technology. At first, Nathan wondered if this was just a PR stunt. Was Musk doing this just to boost his company's image? Or had he actually seen his talent? Someone like you shouldn't go to waste, Musk said, looking him straight in the eye. If you want this chance, you have to give it everything you've got. Because getting a second shot here isn't easy. Nathan took a deep breath. His life, which had been spiraling downward for years, had changed completely overnight. But was he ready for it? The shadows of his past still clung to him. Yet one thing was clear. If he let this opportunity slip away, he might never get another. And so Nathan decided to step back into the world of engineering. But this time, he had to be more than who he once was. On his first day, walking into Tesla's high-security R&D facility felt surreal. Around him were young, brilliant, and energetic engineers. Computer screens overflowed with data, and massive labs were equipped with cutting-edge technology. Nathan had once belonged to this world, but now he felt like he was stepping onto an unfamiliar planet. As the team leader showed him his workspace, other engineers watched him with curiosity. Some questioned his abilities, while others wondered if this media sensation could actually contribute. During his first meeting, as the team debated a new battery technology, Nathan listened quietly. But at one point, he noticed an error in their calculations. When the room fell silent, Nathan raised his hand. "There's a mistake here," he said. "Theoretical energy efficiency should increase by 15%, but the calculations don't support that. If we modify the cathode composition, we can minimize the losses." Tension filled the room. Even experts who had been in the field for years hadn't caught that. The team leader was surprised, but a spark lit up in his eyes. "Let's test it." They assigned Nathan to run the test, not just to validate the idea, but to evaluate his skills on his very first task. Now he had to prove himself. Nathan's transition from the streets to Tesla's headquarters wasn't easy. In the early days, he felt like an outsider. Years of being overlooked had left him with a lack of confidence, mixed with the pressure to prove himself. He stayed silent in meetings, standing among the other engineers like nothing more than a shadow. He felt insignificant next to them, convinced they were questioning his past, wondering if he truly deserved to be there. But the engineer inside him was slowly waking up. He started remembering the technical problems he had once solved with ease, feeling that familiar passion reignite within him. One of his first projects was to solve an efficiency issue in Tesla's battery module zone that had been stalling the team for weeks. Determined, Nathan spent days in the lab, sketching designs late into the night like he used to in his prime. Sleepless nights, coffee stains on his notes, pages filled with calculations. It all reminded him what engineering was really about. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was creating, innovating, and proving to himself that he still had it. Finally, he proposed a radical idea, designing the battery cells to optimize heat distribution. At first, the team was skeptical. "We've tried that before," they said. "Do you have any proof this will work?" Nathan simply smiled and laid his drawings on the table. His simulations and calculations, countless hours of work showed undeniable results. When the results came in, the entire team was stunned. Nathan's solution had significantly reduced a problem Tesla had been struggling with for years. The way his colleagues looked at him changed. He was no longer just a man with a tragic past, but was a valuable engineer. He didn't need to prove himself anymore. His work spoke for itself. Even Musk took notice, personally congratulating him. "I told you," he said with a grin. "Guys like you don't just disappear. Sometimes they just lose their way for a while." That night, as Nathan sat alone in the lab, his eyes landed on an old, worn-out picture frame. On his desk, a photo of him with his family. He hadn't seen them in years. Life had pulled him in so many different directions. But maybe it was finally time to fix things. First, though, he had to put himself back together completely. When he received his first paycheck, he found himself standing in front of a small apartment. The key in his hand felt both foreign and familiar. After years of being homeless, he had almost forgotten what it meant to have a place of his own. As he stepped inside, he looked around at the empty walls. No couch, no table, just space. But to him, these four walls were worth more than a mansion. They were proof that he had made it back. Nathan pulled out a small notebook from his bag and wrote on a blank page, "A new beginning. The past is behind me." But deep down, he knew the past would never fully leave him. The struggles, the failures, and the mistakes were all a part of him. He just had to learn how to carry them without letting them hold him back. A new chapter in his life had begun. But bigger challenges lay ahead. Because getting a second chance was hard, truly earning it was even harder. As Nathan became more focused on his work at Tesla, he wasn't just rebuilding his engineering skill, he was also reclaiming the confidence he had lost. The ideas that were once overlooked were now valued, and his solutions were given serious attention. Over time, he didn't just become a key figure within his team, he became a leader throughout the entire company. His sharp problem-solving skills and humble background inspired many around him. For Nathan, every new project was another opportunity to prove himself. Late nights at the office, endless experiments in the lab, these had become routine. But this time, he was in control of his life. He was no longer seen as a lost man, he was recognized as an engineer with a vision. One day, a senior Tesla executive organized an innovation meeting for a new battery design. The room was filled with some of the brightest minds in the industry, but Nathan's proposal left everyone in stunned silence. His idea introduced a revolutionary change that could significantly improve battery efficiency. At first, no one wanted to believe it. Was something like this even possible? The calculations suggested that, theoretically, it could work. Musk studied Nathan's eyes carefully. "Let's test it," he said after a brief pause. "If this really works, we could change the game." This project would be one of the biggest challenges of Nathan's career. He worked tirelessly for weeks, running tests, brainstorming with his team, and refining the concept. The first few prototypes failed. For the old Nathan, this might have been discouraging, but now, instead of giving up, he kept searching for solutions. His role within the team had also shifted. He wasn't just an engineer anymore. He was a guide, a leader. His relentless determination and work ethic motivated everyone around him. Finally, when they found the right configuration, the test results shocked everyone. Nathan's design had increased battery lifespan by 30%. This could be one of Tesla's biggest breakthroughs in the energy sector. Musk personally came to the lab to review the results. The satisfaction on his face said it all. "Nathan," Musk said with a smile, "we're announcing this, and your name will be at the forefront of this innovation." This was a turning point in Nathan's career. He had once been a forgotten engineer, dismissed and overlooked. Now, he was becoming a name the entire industry was talking about. This was not just a victory for Tesla, it was a personal victory for him. That small feeling of triumph he had when he received his first paycheck was now something much greater. Sitting in his apartment, looking out the window, he thought about his past, the cold nights on the streets, the days filled with fear of failure. Now, he was in an entirely different place. Life still wasn't perfect, but he had a purpose. Nathan sat at his desk, opened his small notebook, and turned to a blank page. Slowly, he wrote, "It wasn't just about a chance, it was about having a reason. And now, I have a new path ahead of me." Nathan's story wasn't just a stroke of luck, it was proof that resilience and the human spirit never truly disappear. No matter how much the world tried to take from him, the fire inside him never fully went out. He showed everyone that talent, intelligence, and determination could never be forgotten with time. He proved that a man who had lost everything could rise again through sheer skill and perseverance. The people who once ignored him now nodded in respect when they heard his name. Nathan, who had once been a lost shadow on the streets, was now a beacon in the world of technology. The opportunity Elon Musk had given him only mattered because Nathan made it count. Others may have opened the door for him, but stepping through it and walking forward was entirely his choice. Months in Tesla's R&D department transformed him into more than just an engineer. He became an inspiration. He wasn't just solving complex circuits and battery systems anymore. He was also guiding young engineers who looked up to him. Those who knew his past admired him for never giving up despite the hardships he had faced. When he first joined, some had doubted him because of where he came from. But Nathan proved his worth, not just with theoretical knowledge, but with practical solutions developed in the field. Week after week, month after month, everyone came to recognize his genius. Over time, he became a name not just within the company, but across the tech industry. He was invited to conferences, and new entrepreneurs wanted to collaborate with him. His story became living proof that second chances were real. Newspapers and magazines lined up to write about his success. Articles titled, "From the Streets to the Top of Tesla," were being published everywhere. But Nathan wasn't interested in media attention, was focused on his work. Because to him, it wasn't about how people saw him, it was about knowing who he truly was. One day, at a major company event, Elon Musk invited Nathan to the stage. As the crowd erupted into applause, Nathan still found it hard to believe he was standing there. He had once been invisible to the world. Now he was inspiring the next generation of engineers. A man who had once spent nights on a park bench was now one of the brightest minds at a tech giant. He took the microphone, took a deep breath, and began to speak. A year ago, I was walking the streets, not knowing where I would sleep. Today, I'm here. I'm grateful to those who believed in me, but most importantly, I learned to believe in myself again. The room echoed with applause. This was his victory moment. Nathan had gone from forgotten to irreplaceable, from the streets to the heart of innovation, and in doing so, he had proven a simple truth: no matter how deeply talent is buried, it will always find a way to rise to the surface. But this wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. Nathan was no longer just a part of Tesla. He was now a mentor lighting the way for future engineers. Young engineers who knew his past started thinking, if he made it, I can too. Many students wrote him letters, mapping out their own paths to follow in his footsteps. Nathan had become a symbol not just in the world of technology, but in the limitless power of the human spirit. Even years from now, his story would continue to inspire young engineers, because the key to success was never giving up. And Nathan had proven that to everyone. Now he looked toward the future without fear. There were no more limits, because even when he had hit rock bottom, he had found a way to climb back to the top. Nathan's work at Tesla made waves for years. He was no longer just an engineer, had become a figure of inspiration for countless young engineers and dreamers striving to achieve their goals. He was invited to conferences, gave talks on innovation, and even wrote a book on overcoming failure and embracing second chances. People admired him, but he never let it go to his head. His past always reminded him of who he was. Years later, while immersed in a project in his own lab, a notification on his phone caught his attention. It was a message from someone he once knew, someone who had belittled him years ago. The message was short. You were right. Talent never fades. He smiled. He no longer needed to prove anything. The proof was him. One day, Musk called him into a private meeting. On the table lay a new projecta, revolutionary technology that could provide long-term sustainable energy solutions for humanity. I want you to lead this, Musk said. Nathan stared at the screen. He was now in a position to offer others the same life-changing opportunity he had once received. At first, he hesitated. Leading a project wasn't just about technical expertise. It required vision, leadership, and the ability to bring people together. But then, he thought back to his past. Years ago, he had felt the same uncertainty while fixing a Tesla vehicle. That moment had made him realize his potential. And now, another challenge stood before him. He accepted it. Under Nathan's leadership, the project sparked a revolution in the energy sector. It wasn't just a breakthrough for Tesla, it was a transformation for the entire world. Sustainable energy was no longer just a dream. Through Nathan's vision, it had become a reality. Young engineers looked up to him. Students found inspiration in his story. He had become a legend not just for his technical brilliance, but for his resilience in the face of adversity. Years later, as he stood on stage delivering a speech, he spotted a familiar face in the audience, someone from his past, someone who had once doubted him, turned their back on him. But this time, there was no mockery in their eyes, only admiration. Nathan smiled slightly and ended his speech with these words: true success isn't about where you come from. It's about where you're going. Everyone deserves a second chance. And most importantly, real change begins within. At that moment, he realized that one journey had ended and a new one had begun. The best way to change people was to give them hope. And Nathan was no longer just an engineer, was now a symbol of hope. After Nathan, anyone who had lost everything and felt hopeless would find strength in his story. He had become a source of hope not just for himself, but for everyone he touched.